phone number is 843-808-SOLD, 843-808-SOLD. We'll repeat that several times over the next 30 minutes. Plus, you can also go online to blakesloan.com. That's blakesloan.com. A lot of great stuff to get to. Brand new show. Let's bring him in. Here's Blake Sloan.
Good morning, everyone. Got an awesome show planned for you. First thing I'm going to do is dig back and look at 2018, kind of look at what results were from a real estate market standpoint, and kind of do a transition point to what to expect with the housing market for 2019, right? I think there's a lot of uncertainties out there. I've got a lot of questions from people, just kind of what's going on, things like that. So we'll talk about kind of what to look for 2019, both locally and also obviously nationally in that regard. We're going to also recap last month's numbers for anyone that obviously missed that, so they can see kind of there's a slight dip that we saw that kind of played into what we predicted would happen a few months ago. And so we're kind of just talking about those numbers. We call them interesting numbers, to say the least. And so we'll dig into that and what that part is. We're going to finally get to the part we've had in here about Myrtle Beach being named one of the top 100 places to retire. It's huge news for us. And from my standpoint, I think it helps insulate us in a very great way in regards to any market shifts, so to speak. So we'll talk about that as well. Some awesome new success stories. We have a special guest back again, Alex Prout, one of the leaders on our team. We'll talk about kind of what to see, what we're going to see next year on both the buyer side, and I'll talk about what we'll see next year for the seller side as well.
All right. Well, like you said, we got a lot of great stuff to get to. If you're just tuning in for the very first time, you just found the show, you just found the station. Who is this guy? Who is this Blake Sloan? Well, he's been called the real estate whiz kid. He's been featured in Forbes magazine. He's seen it in Wall Street Journal, Realtor magazine, many other national publications. On TV, sure, NBC. You've seen him on the Fox and Friends morning show. You've heard the endorsements on this very radio station from Sean Hannity, from Glenn Beck, from Gary LeBox, Barbara Corcoran, and others. Put that all together, it is unprecedented in the real estate world. Now, as far as what Blake does, he's got his own trademark systems that helps both buyers and sellers. Not going to let you in on all the secrets of the trademark systems here on the show. You got to kind of get involved with him, first of all. But there is a little bit that he will kind of give out as far as a little hint, as far as what the most important part of his trademark systems are. And that's very important.
Like I mentioned, this is like my calling now, right? This is kind of what my why is behind what I get up every day and kind of what we do to develop our team going forward. But what we see is there's a lot of horror stories in real estate, right? We all kind of deal with that. Properties that get listed that don't sell, properties that the owner feel was not handled correctly, did not get the right feedback, whatever it may be, or frustrations on the buy side, right, where they had experience that wasn't great. And so we really kind of boil that down to the success and failure. And so it comes down to the single most important variable that determines your failure or success as a home seller comes down to one thing only, period. That's it. And it's the agent that you choose. And really what that really means is there's 118 different variables from A to Z. If each one's handled correctly, right, guess what? That takes basically gives you an advantage. It puts money in your pocket, and the property actually gets sold. Anything's handled incorrectly, aka the ball gets dropped, that costs you money, your hard-earned equity, or the property does not get sold, which happens most of the time, and the property sits there for 6 months, more frustration, more lost money. And so it comes down to how they execute and handle all those variables. The problem is one single agent cannot handle them all. They used to be able to back in the old days when things were different. Today's times, whole different marketplace with technology and all the different aspects. Like I said, 118 different variables. So what we did is we identified every single one of them. Most agents have no clue what they are. They go with the old school method, basically, promise the world to get a listing. 2, they put it into MLS. And 3, they pray that someone else brings a buyer. Meanwhile, they spend all their time hunting down new listings. So what we have is a proven, repeatable system that creates maximum leverage every single point. So it's like stacking the dominoes. At the end, it gives you a huge competitive advantage. We call it the guaranteed sold system. The only proven system to sell homes twice as fast and for up to 200% more money than traditional methods. And for the buyers, guess what? They're different variables. We have a proven system we designed, put in place, trademarked, that gives our client huge competitive advantage. It's called the Unfair Advantage Home Buying System. But what it does is it gets you priority access to foreclosures, distress sales, desperate sellers, the absolute best negotiation in that process, both in the purchase price and also in the home inspection. So that kind of gives you a huge advantage on both sides. And we've talked about before, but just kind of recap is just like running a marathon. Selling your house is ultimately running a marathon. And what happens is everyone takes off at the same time. You're all running that same 26.2, whatever it may be, but some people finish hours ahead of the other ones. It's the same exact thing that we do in the home sales. And how we do that is in very small increments, right? We make small increment details that make a massive difference that comes through in our client experience and how the marketing works and how the processes work and all these things that our team runs that give us a huge advantage, which is how your house sells faster and for more money. And so that's what this show's about. That's kind of what we cover because it is a passion to me. I hear horror story after horror story. People think that all agents are the same, and it could not be further from the truth. So anyone thinking about buying or selling, make sure you reach out to us, learn about our systems. It's absolutely mind-blowing once you see that in person.
All right, well, we've got a great show to get to, and we'll get some more coming up in just a minute, including some of the most important numbers you're going to hear all weekend. Mortgage rates, where are they right now? And also coming up next, real estate update and a little bit of a recap on what 2018 looked like. That's all coming your way in just a second. Get in touch with Blake Sloan. It's real easy to do. As I said, the phone number is 808-SOLD, 843-808-SOLD, or go online to blakesloan.com, blakesloan.com.
Hey, it's your friend Sean Hannity. Now, if you own property in Myrtle Beach, the national marketing plan of the realtor that you choose is absolutely critical. Now, that's exactly why you need to talk to Blake Sloan at Sloan Realty Group. Now, Blake has a marketing system on a whole different level than anyone else in Myrtle Beach. That's so effective at capturing local buyers from around the world that he can guarantee to sell your home at a price and a deadline that you agree to, or Blake's going to buy it. While most agents rely on yard signs and open houses that attract the occasional buyer, Blake attracts hundreds of buyers each month, which creates demand and helps your property sell fast and for top dollar. Now, that's why on average, Blake sells a property every single day of the year and is ranked among the top 100 agents in the entire U.S. by the Wall Street Journal. Now, working with Blake is risk-free. Now, if you're not happy, Blake gives you the freedom to cancel your contract and pay nothing. So give Blake a call today at 808-SOLD. That's 808-SOLD. Or just go online and see Blake's interview on NBC at blakesguarantee.com.
Hi, I'm Barbara Corcoran. To sell your home on time for the most money, you need a sharp agent with a marketing strategy that creates the most demand. Bottom line, you need a partner willing to put their own money on the line for you. In Myrtle Beach, I would hire Blake Sloan. His international marketing creates so much demand that if your home doesn't sell at a price and deadline you agree to, Blake will buy it. Partner with the agent I trust. Go online or call and get your home sold.
It is the Expert Advantage Real Estate Show with Blake Sloan coming your way in just a second. What do the mortgage rates look like right now? Right now, though, let's find out what the real estate market looks like with our latest update. What are you seeing out there, Blake?
All right, so quick recap. Everyone remembers last week we talked about the micro market. That was like every zip code, what's going on. And the numbers, they weren't good, right? They obviously were declines in sales. I had talked about what we call the trifecta, which had a combination of days on market lasting longer, sales being down, and a combination of a few other things that we talked about. And so the reality is a quick market cap, there was decline last month in sales, which is scary, right? The other thing that is we predict this would happen months ago as other parts of the country were seeing slowdowns. Parts of California, Texas, Colorado, we're seeing these slowdowns, which we're always, what I've learned from traveling the country over the years and figuring out what's going on and masterminding is that we're about 6 months behind what they're experiencing. And so we finally saw our first dose of that last month's numbers, aka last week's show. And so, quick recap: single-family home sales last month down 12.4% overall. If you combine new construction and previously owned, if you segment them out, resale homes down 11.8% versus the same month last year. And so that's not great, obviously. The good news is that sales price is still up. We all know that sales price is what we call a lagging indicator, which means that it will not see that for a few months because it's always supply and demand based. And so prices last month up 10.6%. Median price right now in our area is $224,000 for a resale home, which is good, right? And that's something to kind of think about in that aspect. The other part, though, is interesting. The days on market of homes to actually sell took 12.5% longer last month to sell than usual. And so that's something we're going to keep watching overall in that regard. Inventory was still down 1.9%. And so the challenge is, right, inventory is only down 1.9%, but your sales are down over 11%. You can see that's a key sign there of softening. And so we'll kind of talk about that, kind of how that relates overall in the overall marketplace. If you look at closed sales into new construction, they were down 13.3% last month versus the same month last year. 234 of those actually sold. Sold price, though, new construction up 17.1% last month, which is great news. 265, 567 is what we saw for median price there overall. And they saw a 14.5% increase in days on market, meaning it's taken 14.5% longer to sell those homes, which is what, from your perspective, right, that means you need somebody who's better, right? You need somebody who's good in order to get the home sold, because what it comes down to is that homes are hard to sell right now. They're hard to sell last month. And so we'll continue to see and watch what that goes into, and we'll talk about that in a minute in regards to what 2019 outlook is, but that's something you want to make sure that whoever you use, when you do, use someone very, very good, because differentiation in regards to marketing is going to be a key point and a key thing to win in regards to 2019. Condo sales last month down 9.5%. That was also part of the trifecta, right? Resale homes are down, new construction homes are down, condos are down. So there's all three there is showing a sign overall of softening in the marketplace. So that's something to kind of look at as well. Good news there, price is still up 4.8%. Median price $130,000 overall for condos, and days on market took 3.7% longer to sell. And so condos not quite as bad in regards to hit on the actual homes. And so that's what we'll talk about in a minute, what to expect in 2019. My experience and kind of just prelim into that is that if you usually you're thinking about waiting to the spring to sell, do not do that, right? The market will tend to soften a little bit more as rates continue to rise, and you want to take advantage of that now. And also remember that lagging indicator, you may see price decline at that point slightly. And so that's what we'll talk about as well. One thing that's been driving that lately, obviously everyone knows the chaos lately of the stock market. And so we had last week, a huge drop in 1,000-point increase in one day, chaos, right? And so that does indirectly affect the mortgage market. And so the overall numbers right now, 4.64% for a 30-year fixed rate. Ironically, we're the same exact number we were last week. It went up, and went back down. And so that's something that kind of helped a little bit there as well. A 15-year fixed rate right now is 4.20%. A 30-year FHA loan, 4.23%. A jumbo loan right now, 4.40%. And a 5-year adjustable rate mortgage is 4.60%. And so that's something to kind of keep in mind. Just looking back from this past month or so, we saw the highest rates in more than 7 years in October, November. And the other part of that, though, is we saw the lowest rates in 3 months in mid-December. And so you can see that part there, some uncertainty, obviously, that's driving a lot of that. And so the one thing there's two ways that everybody's talking about right now, right? We could look back in October, November, and see a long-term ceiling, or we could look back in December as a temporary correction before we see more pain. That's something we'll kind of dig into and see. Alex and I in a minute will kind of go through what we think is going to play out from our marketplace here. Again, like I mentioned, the good news is we're pretty well insulated, and we'll come in and talk about that here in a second.
All right, sounds good. A lot of stuff still to get to. A fast-moving show and a lot of information. If you're hearing stuff you want to find out more about, call Blake at his office at Sloan Realty Group. Sloan Realty Group. The phone number is 843-808-SOLD, 843-808-SOLD. Or go online to blakesloan.com, blakesloan.com. Coming up next is your Hot Buyers Alert. Also got success stories and a heck of a lot more. Special guest in studio, too. It is the Expert Advantage Real Estate Show with Blake Sloan.
You want your home sold on time and for the most money without all sorts of excuses? Hi, it's Glenn Beck, and when I had to sell my home, I went through several agents who all had good ideas, but the bottom line is they couldn't get the job done. Well, if you have a celebrity in your own town, I live in Myrtle.
Just a little bit for you.
Thank you.
Sloan Realty Group. Blake has a marketing system that reaches buyers from around the U.S. and around the world, and week after week, he attracts hundreds of buyers, and that creates incredible demand. And that's why
So
guaranteed
we'll hit these hot buyers. You and I kind of talk about, we'll do a success story. Then we'll have special guests here. And I'll kind of lead that in a few things I'm talking about over here as well. And just the usual, make sure you have somebody who's good, the basics that we talk about. And also how we're ramping up for that.
Or listen to Blake's Real Estate Show every Saturday morning at 9 or Sunday morning at 11:30 right here on WRNN.
It's the Expert Advantage Real Estate Show with Blake Sloan. Coming up in just a second, some fantastic success stories. Right now, though, it's your Hot Buyers Alert. Blake and his team working with a huge amount of home buyers, and they're all looking for homes in the Myrtle Beach area. Might be looking for your home. If you're in the range between $150,000 to $3.5 million, and you're even thinking about selling, contact Blake immediately because he needs your inventory and he needs it now. That same phone number, 843-808-SOLD. How many people are out there looking? Well, there are active home buyers on Blake's website right now to the tune of about 51,349 to be exact, that are looking for your home. And they're checking back on a regular basis several times a day to see what's new. And if there's a new listing there, they're going to be stocking it. It's an amazing amount of people, Blake.
Huge. And that's one thing that I don't know if I'm crazy or what, but the reality is, I said before, I'm not pulling my foot off the pedal, right? We're continuing driving traffic. We're still seeing massive amounts of people on our site from all over the world, really, most of which are the Northeast. And so we need sellers, right? We need sellers who are obviously matching what they want. Like you mentioned, 51,349 people on the site from all over right now. Thomas Markham, Columbus, Ohio. Diana Biebernitz, Albany, New York. Michael Konjowski, Wilbraham, Massachusetts. And last one, Eric Schmidt, Tarboro, North Carolina. And it goes on and on and on. But the reality is, these are real people. Username, passwords, accounts. They're looking at houses right now on our site. And so we need to actually, our business model is a lot different than the average agents, right? They'll get a listing and then hope to go find a buyer. We find buyers first. And we have massive pools of buyers that we're working with. And that's how our properties sell so much faster. We have technology and salespeople who match up buyers and sellers. Our sales team is incentivized to basically match a buyer up to your house. They get paid more money, right? That's what they're hired to do. That's what we're hired to do, and that's what we've been able to perfect. We're very, very good at. And so, anyone out there thinking about selling, make sure you take action now. Everybody kind of got into that, we call it the paralysis mode of the holidays. Now is go time. Now it's time to take action, right? Get the results that you want. If there's anything that we've talked about from these numbers looking back, is that you do not want to wait to the spring of this year. You want to take advantage now when there's less inventory in the market. There has not been a price decline yet. We've only slightly seen in the beginning of that, which is obviously the slight decline in sales. And so if you're thinking about relocating back to family, downsizing, any of those things, you want to make sure you take advantage of that now. Get maximum dollar for your property. And the other part is we're not that seasonal, right? We're fairly seasonal compared to some places, but ultimately when it's cold up north, guess where the pain's at? Up north. They're coming down here to buy in a mild temperature. And so anyone out there thinking about selling, make sure reach out to me. Give us a call, 843-808-SOLD. We've been kicking butt all the way through the holidays. I promise you all, and I haven't missed a show in, I don't know, a while, right? From being gone, is that the reality is we had the hammer down all the way through the holidays. Alex will tell you in a second, we pushed hard. We were calling Alex a message today trying to figure out, what attorneys have been working through the holidays, even through New Year's. And so the reality is we're pushing hard, closing deals, squeezing them in. But more importantly, what we've been doing is filling that pipeline for January, February, March. Our first quarter, we're planning to knock it out of the park because we've been stacking through this whole time. While the average agents have been off, in La La Land for November, December, we've been hustling, grinding, pushing, which is going to help you get results in January, February as a home seller. And so another part, just as we kind of ground through that part, super cool one from this week. Claude and Deborah, they want to sell their Myrtle Beach home so they can move closer back to family. The problem was they need to get top dollar so they could purchase a home that they wanted near their family. So they weren't sure to reach out for as a realtor. And that's something that kind of, not triggered me, but basically was enlightening to me, because there's probably that fear a lot of people have is who do I use, right? Do I call somebody? Do you got to go online to some stupid website? And the reality was, thankfully, they asked their friend. And their friend just happened to be sellers who used us to get their home sold. They say, look, you got to call Blake and their team. So they did. They reached out to us. We came in and launched our global marketing blitz, professional photos. Within 1 week, we have multiple showings, and all from their team right at all from their property right at full asking price. And now they're moving close to their grandchildren. So that's just one of the many. Another one, they had their house listed for over 6 months with an agent. 0 action, 0 offers. This is pretty cool, though. They were referred to us by an amazing radio listener after theirs had been on the market. We came in, identified the problem, implemented our global marketing blitz, professional photos, drove massive traffic, got it under contract in a couple weeks. But here's the cool part. We were able to negotiate for them to stay in the property for 1 month after it closed in that part. And so they were able to find a house that they wanted, and they paid all cash on the other home because they weren't having to wait till they open and close. And so that doesn't happen all the time, but that just shows you the power of negotiation and how we did that for our client. And so they had huge leverage coming in that, and they actually beat out another buyer who had what they call a contingency contract on that home. And so we came in, made a full cash offer, and the buyer who had the contingency had to pull theirs off or remove their contingency. And so basically they backed off. We came in, closed cash on that. And so there's many things that we can do for you if your situation's unique. So the best thing to do is reach out, call me. It doesn't matter what it is. I always joke, we can sell a tennis shoe if we need to, based on the situation. Just let me know, and we can see how to tailor that. We sell multi-million-dollar homes, right? Excuse me. One of the highest sales MLS this past year. At the same time, we sell everything. And so that's something that's super powerful to think about, and reach out to us as well. Excuse me. So on that mark, we'll go to the special guest in the house. We have Mr. Alex Proud. What's up, Alex?
Hey, how's it going?
And so the reality is that we're coming to the end of the year. We've had some kind of things here, and we're talking about what's everyone going to see going into 2018. And so you and I talked about that. What's your thoughts, what you've been seeing lately, at least, on the buyer front coming in town and things like that, at least in the marketplace?
I'll be honest, there's still a lot of confidence going on. There really hasn't been a big back off the pedal. I still get calls every day. We still get web submissions every day. People are confident looking into it. I've got 3 showings scheduled for tomorrow morning myself. I know the rest of the team's still out there grinding as well.
And that's one thing that, I just talk about really quick is like through this transition of the holidays everyone had, what was it like? You messaged me a screenshot today, some agent who hadn't been around in a couple weeks, right? And so the reality is like, they were a different company, and you were trying to get into their listing or trying to make an offer or something, right?
Absolutely.
And so what have you seen in regards to the average agents through this holiday period in regards to kind of that hustle mode?
Well, it's no secret that what we say is how you do anything is how you do everything. And I think the big thing that differentiates us right now is that we're still at it. I was in Christmas Eve. I was in every day this week. I'm sharing market data early in the morning to make sure our team is sharp and on top of it, because we know that going into the new year, in order to provide the best service and value to our clients, the practice starts now. It doesn't start once the year flips around. There is no new year, new me. It's exactly what you do to follow through that's going to help your clients in the long run.
Right, and so we talked about that, and our team is like, hey, look, the momentum for 2019 has already started, right? And so our team's behind that. The same thing for you as a home seller, right, or a home buyer. You want to take advantage of that and make sure that someone has that same thing. And so that's something that's super powerful to kind of think about. And so I kind of broken down some of the things like what to look for in 2018. Again, I don't want anybody to take that, I'm a little hypersensitive to numbers. And like Alex said, the buyer confidence is still there. They don't really know there's anything softening in most cases, right? No. I'm just watching the statistics and seeing that a little bit based on, and my job is to help advise you all out there based on obviously what I'm seeing and based on the expert point of view of the marketplace. And so that's why I'm keeping, a pulse on other parts of the country. And I've always seen it comes to us later on. Now, I don't think that we're going to have any type of huge drops or anything like that, but it will become more difficult to sell. It may take a little bit longer to sell. And so that's something you want to take advantage of now, though, in this spring market, because the spring market, I think, is going to set the tone initially, and you may see some softening towards the middle of the year. And so the reality is, if you're thinking about selling, you've been talking it over, and you kind of want to make that decision, and you are into the new year, new me, right, for yourself, reach out to us, 843-808. So looking at a report this morning, and it talks about 30-year fixed interest rates. The projection is Q1 4.9%, Q2 5.0%, Q3 is basically 5.2%, and Q4 is looking at 5.3% overall. So that's just something that we're seeing there. But the reality, though, we won't see a huge decline from buyers. And like you mentioned, they're still loading the website like crazy. They're still coming back, and you still have a ton of people coming into town right now as well.
Absolutely.
And so that's something to kind of think about. And so everyone's going to predict, like the national numbers are predicting, this company called CoreLogic, which is huge, is predicting that they call it the home price index, that prices will increase about 4.8% year over year. And so we're still doing pretty well, which is good. And so that's just something to kind of think about overall and kind of what everyone's looking at. And so that's just something to kind of think about overall 2018 versus 2019. Like, for example, in 2018, they're looking at 5.96 million homes sold. And in 2019, they're predicting 6 million on the dot. And so you're seeing a little bit of that kind of, and that's obviously nationally. The cool thing about us is we're obviously insulated very well. And one of the things that just came out was that this company called Where to Retire, and Dave, you probably heard about that too, I'm not sure, that Where to Retire, about Myrtle Beach, talking about being the top 100. And so the cool part is that we were selected as a top retirement destination in the 6th edition of America's Top 100 Places to Retire. And it's a comprehensive guide. And basically, they spent 11 months researching more than 800 cities. And the final selection represented 35 states and 6 in South Carolina, which they had Aiken, Beaufort, Charleston, Greenville, Hilton Head, and Myrtle Beach. And so the very cool part of that is it allowed them to see it. And we were named at the top. And Alex, what's been your experience with a lot of clients and stuff coming down? We see tons and tons of people who are selling their house up north, retiring down here on a fixed income and a pension, and they see huge value in what we have here.
I think the difference between our market and a lot of markets, and numbers are obviously powerful, but I think what's more powerful is the life vision and the dream that folks have. And that's not going to change just because the market moves up or down. It basically continues on because that's the age they're reaching. This is what they've been planning for their whole lives, and we're here to execute and make that come true. Exactly.
And that's one thing that, hey, look, they've been grinding out, get to the retirement age, and they're moving down here. And again, that's something that we've been very well dialed into. Is one of the first things I noticed when I got in the business that all the money was coming from up north. They're selling houses up there that have much higher taxes, right? 10, 20,000 a year just in taxes. Not to mention average sale price is significantly higher. They're selling the 450s, 500s, even $1 million, $2 million, and selling that out there, coming down here paying cash, right, buying that and seeing a huge value. Like Alex said, they've been working for 30 years, 40 years. They're not really worried about, a 1% drop in the market or whatnot, right? They're worried about lifestyle. And the good news about Myrtle Beach is, guess what? We are a lifestyle destination, right?
Absolutely.
And so that's just something to huge kind of think about as well. And so the other part, too, is that what we've been doing, and Dave, how much time do you think we got?
I got a couple minutes left.
Okay, so the one thing, too, that's huge for us is that everyone's predicting that you're going to continue to see, obviously, some price appreciation in next year, right? And so we're doubling down on that, and Alex is kind of part of one of our team leaders, and so we sketched out even yesterday on the board our plan, in regards to how we're going to operate. And again, what would you say to anyone out there that wonders, like, what our culture is like as a team? Because people are like, what actually makes you guys different? In your opinion, if you had to answer that question to someone out there listening or been listening for a while, what would you say to them?
I think it's just intensity and a rigid commitment to excellence. It's details, it's everything that we can do to make sure that everything goes as smooth in a transaction process as possible. It's incredibly important to us. So from the smallest document to the overlay of the entire process, we're on it the whole way through.
Yeah, and that's one thing that you've noticed and seen, and you and I are meshing all the time. And even today, I jumped up and got out my office and went to another guy's office, right, when I heard something that he said. And so there is a huge commitment to excellence, and I think that that's something a lot of our clients mention that they experience with us, because obviously I'm fanatical about it, and I'm very intense. I'm difficult to work with a lot of times, but the reality is we have that commitment for a reason, right? Mm-hmm. We have certain core values that we stand by as a company and as a team, and you're kind of sharing some of those recently. What do you think that it's kind of the shock for anyone new that comes in and works for us once they see that, but then they love it because they become part of that culture?
The big shocker is always when do you sleep and how do you get done what you need to get done? But eventually what happens is we teach at a high level these types of processes so that everyone can fit this into their day as well, and then eventually anyone who comes in and joins the fold becomes excellent in their own way as well. In
all around life, right? And
Absolutely.
So that's one thing too that I hadn't here forgot to mention is that we are adding to our team. We're looking for 3 new experts in the first quarter here to join our team because, like I mentioned, we're at 51,000 plus leads. We need winners. Anyone is thinking about, if you're in real estate now listening and know someone is, have them reach out to us because, like Alex, what would you say as an agent? Our team is pretty awesome, right? Our system is pretty awesome compared to what people have seen out there in the other areas.
Absolutely. It's a cut above anything else, and I've personally been in other places, so I know from firsthand experience.
Awesome. So we out of time?
Yeah. Absolutely. That's why I gave you
My timer is gone this week. I have some new technology here.
That's what happened. All right, tell you what, you have been listening to the Expert Advantage Real Estate Show along with Blake Sloan. If you have any questions about anything you've heard, make sure and give Blake a call at the office. It's Sloan Realty Group. Make sure and get the right one. And you can give them a call at 843-808-SOLD, 843-808-SOLD, or go online to blakesloan.com. Blake, have yourself a great holiday. Talk to you next week.
Yes, sir. I'll be here.
All right, it is the Expert Advantage Real Estate Show with Blake Sloan.
Hey, Myrtle Beach, it's Gary LaVox, lead singer of Rascal Flatts. When I'm Moving On won the award for ACM Song of the Year, it struck a chord with folks who understand
Yours is
the
finally
challenges
working now,
that
look.
come with life's big
Should we go to me?
For many, that happens when it comes time to sell their home. If you're moving on, you want a real estate agent who will make selling your home